Hello and welcome. In this video we will talk about new awesome features of new Rapise version 8.2. You may learn more about available features by visiting Rapise documentation site, release notes, and here you may see more detailed list of all the modifications, improvements, features, bug fixes in this release. In this video we plan to cover some key improvements. It is RVL Repository command to include external objects, RVL AI command, and all the range of AI features that are now in Rapise. Piercing Shadow DOM, new feature that helps you to query elements within Shadow DOM. New feature that enables quick import of some page objects into your frameworks. And finally, integration with ExtentReports to help you build more sophisticated reports. For those who have huge applications with many screens, many objects, we introduce a new feature, RVL Repository command. It helps to organize widgets and objects into groups in more convenient way and make them more manageable. Also, it helps to only use those objects that are required by given test case for implementing your scenarios. So let's look at the example. For example, this library information system application has a number of screens, each has its set of controls. We may identify in this book manager there is a create new book link, filter, edit field, and a number of controls to show and edit individual books, as well as sorting and so on. So we have a table here. We have very similar in the author management and similar set of controls. We also have editor controls. When we try to create new author, we have an input form, and the same for create new book, where we have an input form with a number of links, edit fields, and buttons. So we may group each of those into separate tests and only use those that are needed for particular scenario. For example, if we are going to create an author, we will need this screen, and also we will need this screen. We will not need the screen with books or book creation facilities. So there is a focused view that we may establish to deal with specific subset of objects. Let me show you how we did it with Rapise 8.2. So we have our testing framework in which I created a folder views, and each view is a test case with its own object repository. For example, when we edit author, we have the form controls that are help to fill information about the author. The same about book editing. We may also see that there are controls with the same name, but they are sitting in different buckets. So this is for editing book, it has name, and this is for editing an author, and it also has name. And we may now organize those in our scenario with the help of the repository command. So we have author management and only one scenario for now, and we need to create an author. So what we need to do is to first of all import some information from authors. So there are controls from the authors, and I can do this by dragging this right from here. And here it is, we have a repository. Now if I click a drop down, I may see that all controls from the authors are shown here in the beginning. and they are all shown with the prefix that is defined here. For example, I have author slash as a prefix. It's set automatically from the name of this test case when I was dragging these objects. And if I change it to something else, for example, like that, then my drop-down would look differently. So the prefix changes, so I may choose whatever is more convenient for my test readability. Let me just use default one. So I will need to go to create new author in this scenario. Then I need to fill information about author. So I need this repository in my test case. I may also drag it here. This is one way, or I may simply specify it by using repository, then some prefix. Let me call it edit, and then specifying the path to it. So the path has this following form, and I may fill it right from the text. So this was edit author. And now I may start using the objects from each of these repositories. And here is the final test case implemented in this manner. So I have three repositories, and nav is for accessing the main menu of the application, and the others are from specific areas in the application. So with the help of repository command, my test case may look like that. So with RVL repository, we have a way to group our objects as test cases and then import them using the RVL repository command. Each important object may have prefix, which by the way may be empty, and after that each object is accessible using its prefix and ID. The simplest way to add an object repository to RVL is to use drag and drop. New major feature in Rapise 8.2 is what we call Rapise AI feature. It is a big set of different things that you will find in Rapise, and the full description goes far beyond the scope of this particular video. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is explain where you may find this full description. So you need to go to the primary documentation site, which is rapisedoc.inflector.com. Click on the AI in the left, and here is the landing page for AI features. Here are documentation topics related to UI within Rapise and covering the basics. Also, you have this playlist with individual videos that covers all specific features in more details. So if you want to dive deeper, this is the right place to go. And one of the features we are talking about is new RVL AI Command. The goal of this command is to help making your test cases as close as possible to manual test cases. For example, we have the manual scenario here that involves the calculator application. And Rapise AI would try to use available assets in the given framework to generate an automation script. In our case, the assets are widgets that were already learned before that belong to this calc application. So we imported them right here by dragging them into this sheet. And the script generator should be aware about them when generating. Once we have this scenario here, I may press the Show AI Panel button on the toolbar. So we have new empty script with each step from here. And what I need to do now is to generate it. I click Generate All by pressing the magic wand. Shortly, it should produce the code for all the commands. While I'm speaking, you see it's generating something. So for each step here, it's producing some code that is executable and that would be a part of my scenario. Now, if I play this test case using usual play button or play all these commands from here, it would just execute my scenario. And here we may see the results of execution and the test is passing. New RVL command helps to unleash the power of Rapise page objects. For example, in this scenario, when we look at its implementation by AI, we may see that it found that we have page object that contained the methods for doing login to the application and creating an author. And it used them accordingly by providing appropriate parameters. Partially, parameters go from the description, like the username and password, and partially it was dreamed by AI. So in this case, it's an author's age, and AI decided to set it to 30 because nothing is specified right here. So it implemented this scenario using the page object with API to the application. Now, if we notice, we have two page objects with similar actions. So we may do it using API and we may do the same using UI. So we may log in and we may create an author. And if we want to specify to the UI, we may do this using double hash command. So let me show the panel here. And this double hash says that we want to use UI as much as possible when generating the code for this test case. And we may see that this time it used PO command, which is UI entry point, for generating the same scenario. As I said before, the generator tries to use all the assets available for the test case, and one of such assets is variables. For example, we may have a variable defining the age of the author, and we suppose it to be used when creating a new author. So let me show the panel for this sheet, and we may see that generated code found that we have a variable author age, and it used it here in appropriate place. With AI, the most important thing becomes the naming. So AI should be able to understand what this variable purpose is. And once it understands it, it would use it properly. RVL AI action may also have its own params that helps to parameterize the RVL command. In this case, we have two parameters, user and pass, and we use it in the text of this RVL command in curly braces, user and pass. So the generated code would contain this placeholder, user and pass, and it would supply real value when we execute the test case. It would take it from these parameters. So, for example, if these parameters link to variable or link to a map, it would use corresponding values. Thus, we may use the parameters to enable AI commands within data-driven tests. AI commands may also be multi-line. So I may define AI, login as, then press F2, and then I may add more new lines. Right now, editor showing just for a last line, but if I click elsewhere, I may see that command is bigger, so I may edit it again. Press F2 and username, password, librarian. Remove redundant lines. Also, I may format it a bit. So we have two options. We may mark it with bold and with italic. So let me mark name with bold. I'm pressing Ctrl B and mark this is italic. That's it. So I have multi-line command with some formatting, and if I generate it, I will get very similar results to what I was getting before. Login, librarian. AI itself is extremely powerful in data generation, and we have linked to that functionality right from within Rapise. For example, here we have a map from which we want to take patient data in some data-driven test, and I want to fill this map with more patients, with more information about patients. So I'm selecting, clicking somewhere inside this map to set the context and going to view AI dashboard. Here in AI dashboard, I may add new chat, and from the drop down, I may select the type of chat which is more appropriate for this case. For example, generate more rows. Add 20 more patients. It generates something based on the information already available in this map. So we have some columns with some example value. And once it is done, I expect to see more patients here. So this is the information. Initially, it's in the JSON format. I may see it here. And finally, I may apply it to my RVL. So I click on the apply and then I click insert here. So you see patient information is now here in my list. Chats. Chats are a very powerful way to interact with code generation in Rapise. AI likes chats, and we have them here. For example, here we ask it to add 3 5 times. This means press 3, then add 3 plus 3 plus 3, and altogether 5 times. So the code that has generated is like that, and I may want to generate it differently. For example, if I have not 5 by 100 times, or I have a parameter, I would like my code to look differently. Now, I may interact with code generation using the AI dashboard and chat. So I click on this more button and then click on the chat icon. And the chat that were used to generate this particular piece shows on the screen. So this is the request and this is the generated code. And I may proceed, I may ask for more, and I may ask to use the loop, for example, and it's supposed to change the logic and update the generated code. So you may see that what it used is it applied the for loop for doing the same 5 times, and 4 of these 5 times it was using add button after 3 plus 3 plus, and except the final case when it just pressed 3 and didn't press plus because it pressed equals. So I'm satisfied with this code mostly, except maybe this last part, because I didn't ask it to verify the result, although the verification is correct. So I may be satisfied. In this case, I may just press apply here, and new generated code gets applied to my command. You see it's here. Also, I may interact with this code right here. I may just edit it. For example, I don't want this verification to happen, so I may simply edit this part and remove it here, and then apply. So we are very flexible on the code that is generated, So we may interact with the chat that used to generate code or generate data or generate tables or generate the scripts using the images or all the kind of features that are now available in Rapise. And we may talk, we may uh, uh, add more arguments for it to produce the better code. Also, we may then edit the code to produce what we prefer the best. There are plenty of things about AI that are out of the scope of this shorter video. I may just briefly point to their existence, so you may find them in the documentation or in other videos. One is examples. So the generation of code is more and more effective the more useful examples you provide. So here we provide example how not to do something, how we do not want it to verify the result of calculation, and how we do want to verify the results of calculation. And once it is defined this way inside AI examples, this is done using this thumbs up button. It simply adds the text right here in these AI examples. Then we pass this information to all further AI generation, and it is passed to all requests, so AI knows how you want something to be performed. Another thing is AI prompt, where you may define some common statements about your application, some common definitions, some common data sets, or whatever is appropriate in your case. In our case, we want each calculation to start with pressing of the clear button, so we remove the results of previous calculations and don't add to like previous numbers. And this may be stated here, and as you may see, all generated chunks have the clear done before doing anything else. It's really hard to stop talking when talking about AI. There are so many useful features here. And to finalize my speech, which should be limited, I'm going to use this feature that is essential and I cannot avoid mentioning it. I mean vision. If we look at any chat here, we may see that the user message contains 3 attachment buttons. First is to attach the captured image from screen. Second is to attach image from file. And last is to attach image of the application that is currently shown in mobile emulator or attached mobile device that is attached through Appium. And we may use this image as a grounding for our request. My request would be to generate some scenario. It is one of common ways to deal with that, and I need a scenario for my application. Creating it, capturing the application, which is a calculator, I need 10 to 15 scenarios to validate the correctness of this application. So it's supposed to generate some scenarios. If I use it as this, I need to have some RVL file, and I'm going to create it. We'll call it scenarios and language RVL. I need to click once in the RVL, in the target RVL, and then I can apply these scenarios here. Click insert here, and you may see that my scenarios converted to AI commands. It's okay overall, but you may see that it is using something in curly braces to explain, and curly braces are interpreted as parameters. So this is something I want to correct, and I will try to convince it to generate it in more concise way. Avoid using this. Make all test cases one line. So make it more concise, make it in a way that they avoid using curly braces. So it's not confused with parameters. All right. You see it uses number 1, number 2. So we may use it that way. Also, we may chat with it more and ask it to rephrase. Let me use it as it is right now. So we may fine-tune it, but I think it's okay as it is. So we have it in some form here. Some of them are not fitting into one line, so we need to increase the size. Okay, now it fits. So I have a number of scenarios, each of which is one line. Now I may generate it using the available assets. So I have buttons. I may drag and drop the repository here. Now it's here. And now I may open AI panel and generate actual test cases. It would process them one by one, and for each it should generate some meaningful scenario. Once it is done, I have a number of scenarios here. Each is implemented using the buttons available in the calc buttons. So these are some useful scenarios, and they go beyond what I expected in the beginning. It, for example, uses memory button. Probably I need to learn it. But other than that, I may execute them one by one and see how they work to check that they are valid. So this is the first scenario, and so on and so forth. So I managed to generate some scenarios from the application and from some description. I could fine-tune it using the chat, and I was able to execute some of them. Probably I will have to go back and forth for some of these scenarios in case some buttons are missing or something like that. But other than that, I have the whole test set generated with the help of AI using Rapise and using the vision feature. To summarize everything we learned about Rapise AI Command so far, the Rapise AI command used to generate code, and it uses different assets such as parameters, variables, objects from object repositories, and page objects. It may be used for data generation such as input data sets. You may use chat to provide more grounding or to change the generated results and fine-tune them to fit your needs. There are different files that affect the generation and that may be applied globally. So you may provide positive and negative examples, as well as you may provide additional prompt that it is added to each generation prompt. It may use vision whenever needed to add more grounding to the generation or to provide input data for generation. It may be used to generate testing scenarios based on different input data such as images or just text. And there are much more that didn't fit into this video, but you may find it in help topics or in other videos.
Rapise 8.2 can pierce shadow DOM. This means that if a CSS selector does not contain a special delimiter indicating a shadow DOM boundary, Rapise will search for the element everywhere, including the light DOM and all shadow DOM routes recursively. Let's see how it works. Let's open the page that contains a shadow DOM example. I am playing selection, and Rapise should open Chrome browser with the UI testing playground website and Shadow DOM example. This is the website we created to demonstrate different tasks in UI test automation. So here on this page, we have a GUID generator that is inside Shadow DOM. Let's run WebSpy and see the structure of this page. So let's see the DOM tree of this page. I'm going to track this edit field inside GUID generator. Here we go. And here you can see that GUID generator is an element that contains Shadow DOM, and inside this element we may find an input field and a couple of buttons. So let's double click input field, and Rapise will generate some generic selector for this element. Here we may see that the first part of this selector is simple XPath. Then we have a delimiter that designates Shadow DOM boundary. And after that, we have CSS selector for an element inside this Shadow DOM root. So this is how it worked before Rapise 8.2. Also, we may use pure CSS for both parts. Here we go. So first we find GUID generator element inside the light DOM, and then we cross Shadow DOM boundary, and then we find input element. So let's test this selector, and we may see that Rapise found this element and highlighted it. So let's highlight it again. Here we go. So what happened in Rapise 8.2? In Rapise 8.2, we added the ability to pierce Shadow DOM. It means that if you define a selector that does not contain this specific delimiter, then Rapise will search for an element everywhere, in the light DOM and in all the Shadow DOM roots recursively. So what we can do here, we may just delete this part, and we'll search for an element, input element everywhere. So let's test it. And we may see that Rapise found this input element inside the Shadow DOM. Again, if I will first search for GUID generator and then for input, Rapise should find it as well. So let's do this. Here we go. So this CSS selector means that we are searching for GUID generator and then for input somewhere recursively inside this GUID generator. So let's test it, and we may see that the element is found. So this feature is good, and it helps to reduce the size of CSS selector. But there is one thing that you should keep in mind when you are using Shadow DOM piercing here, is that Rapise may find elements that you do not want to find. So for example, you may see that on this page, in the light DOM, in the head element, we have a bunch of link elements. And also in our Shadow DOM root, we also have link element. So let's just search for link element and see what Rapise will find. I click test, and here we see that Rapise found many link elements. So Rapise found link elements in the light DOM, and also it found link element in Shadow DOM root as well. So if you will use this feature, then Rapise may start finding more elements that you wish. So in this case, you need to make your CSS selector more specific. So if I will do GUID generator and click test, Rapise will find just link element inside the Shadow DOM root. So this is how it works. In Rapise, you can import pre-built page objects from other frameworks. Additionally, the Rapise team has created a collection of page objects that you can download from GitHub and use. And starting with Rapise version 8.2, importing any of these page objects hosted on GitHub is just a few clicks away. Let's see how it works. I have a testing framework opened in Rapise. If a testing framework is opened in Rapise, then you should see this modules pages node in the object tree. Let's right click it. Here you can see two import options. First option is if you want to import a page object from your own framework, other framework, then you may use it. Here, if you will select this option, you will need to point to sstest file location for this page object. But here I want to show you in more details the second option, import public page object. Rapise team created a bunch of page objects. We call them useful page objects, and you may import them in use in any of your testing frameworks. Here, when we select this option, we can see all the useful page objects available at the moment. They are hosted on GitHub. So to find where they are located, we may open the browser, then navigate to github.com/inflectra and search for PowerPack repository. And in this repository, we have a folder, FW useful page objects. And if we will go deeper, then inside page objects, we will see all of them. So here you may see the source code and the implementation for these page objects. And Rapise downloads them exactly from this location. Before Rapise 8.2, you had to clone this repository, and according to this documentation, just import these page objects from your local copy of this repository. In Rapise 8.2, you just need to do a couple of clicks to add one of these useful page objects to your testing framework. So let's see how it works. Let's import some of them. Also notice when you place mouse over any name here in this list, then Rapise shows you a brief description of this page object. So if you click on it, Rapise connects to GitHub, downloads this module, and you can see it here in the object tree. You may expand it, see its actions, and if you place cursor over an action name, you can see what this action should do. So in this case, description is pretty short, but let's install something else. For example, web page helper. And let's expand its sections. Okay, and let's install one more, keyboard helper. Okay, it presses different buttons. So if you know that Rapise team published a newer version of any module here, then you may right-click modules node again. For example, we have keyboard helper already installed. If I will choose it again, then Rapise will not install second copy of this module. It will prompt me if I want to reinstall this module, or if there is a newer version, we will see the new version number here in this message. So it's safe to just reinstall the module, and no duplicate modules will be created here. So when you have a module installed, you may just use it. So for example, here we have a web testing framework. So let's use some action from web page helper. For example, it has get full page text here. I may simply drag and drop it here. Okay, and let's just print the result to our report. So I will use tester message, and message will receive last result. So this is the result of the previous action. I may simply select the lines I want to execute, place selection, and soon in the report we should see the text of our page. Here we go. So this is how you may install and use useful page objects created by Rapise team. ExtentReports is a popular logger-style reporting library for automated tests. And since Rapise 8.2, there is a simple way of using it for custom reporting. To quickly see how ExtentReports integration works in Rapise, you may simply clone the PowerPack repository from GitHub. So let's go to the root of this repository, github.com, Inflectra Rapise PowerPack. And if you will clone it, and if you will go inside useful page objects, here you may open framework SSTest, and this is framework for unit testing page objects that we described in the previous section of this video. And it has ExtentReports already integrated. So let me open it in Rapise. So I have a PowerPack repository cloned locally to this machine. And this is the framework. And inside ExtentReports folder, it has 3 test cases that we created to demonstrate ExtentReports integration. Also here you may see that ExtentReports module is included in this testing framework. And here we may see what actions it offers. So actually you don't need to directly call any of these actions. ExtentReports integrate with Rapise at report API level. And if you have ExtentReports page object in your testing framework, then besides generating generic reports, Rapise also generates ExtentReports and displays ExtentReport result at the end of execution. So let's see how it works. So in ExtentReports folder, I have 3 test cases. I may execute any of them, but I will run all test cases in this folder. So let's minimize this. And now Rapise should run 3 test cases and generate ExtentReports. Those ExtentReports will look very similar to Rapise report. They will also contain screenshots if you have screenshot taking functionality in your test cases. And the main difference is that this ExtentReport format may be used in your CI/CD pipeline if you have some other tests and use other testing frameworks to execute some of your tests. So now Rapise is executing test case that should fail, and the last one, lease login. So now we will review the result, and then I will show you how to plug ExtentReports from scratch into your testing framework. Okay, here is the result. Rapise generates HTML extent report, and here we see 3 our test cases. For each test case, we see the steps, we see screenshots. So I can click on another one. And also we have a summary page that shows high-level information about this test case execution session. Let's return back to a testing framework that does not have extent reports included yet. So, and let's include them. So I right-click modules, choose import public page object, and choose extend reports. And Rapise should download the binaries and some integration code to use extend reports in this testing framework. So let's now run our test case that we created earlier and then see the result. So this is all what you need to plug ExtentReports into your testing framework. Just install ExtentReports module. Okay, so this is the report generated, and here we see full page text that we implemented in the previous sections of this Rapise 8.2 highlights. So using ExtentReports is very simple and straightforward.
This ends the highlights session. Thank you for watching. Please leave your comments under this video and have a great day.